Imagine the dim glow of a roadside diner in the fading twilight of a dusty Texas evening. A young widow, her face etched with exhaustion and quiet despair, sits at a corner booth with her two small children, a boy of 7 clutching a worn teddy bear, and a girl of 5 with eyes too big for her fragile frame. They're sharing a single plate of cold leftovers scavenged from the kitchen's scraps, each bite measured, each crumb precious. And then, a tall cowboy in weathered boots and a faded hat pushes through the door, his eyes landing on them like a thunderclap of fate. Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to Western Tales of Frontier, and leave a like and comment if this story touches your heart. It was the kind of evening where the wind whispered secrets through the cracks in the old wooden diner, carrying the scent of rain that never came. Sarah Thompson had been driving for hours, her beat-up truck rattling like it might give up at any moment. She'd lost count of the miles since leaving the foreclosed farm back in Oklahoma, her husband's sudden death from a heart attack 6 months ago leaving her with nothing but debts, 2 kids, and a hollow ache that no amount of time seemed to fill. Little Tommy and Emma clung to her like lifelines, their innocent questions about Daddy stinging worse than any wound. They'd stopped at this diner because the gas gauge was flirting with empty, and Sarah had scraped together enough change for a cup of coffee. But when the waitress, a kind soul named Rita with a name tag pinned crookedly to her apron, saw the kids' hungry eyes, she slipped them a plate of uneaten fries and half a burger from a table that had just cleared. "On the house, darlin'," she'd whispered, patting Sarah's hand. Sarah nodded gratefully, fighting back tears as she divided the food into 3 meager portions. Tommy picked at his fries slowly, trying to act brave, while Emma sucked on a ketchup packet like it was candy. That's when Jack Harlan walked in. Jack was a cowboy through and through, the kind who'd spent his life herding cattle across vast ranches, his hands calloused from ropes and reins, his heart scarred from losses he never spoke about. He'd lost his own wife to illness a decade ago, and their unborn child with her. Since then, he'd wandered from job to job, a lone figure under endless skies, convincing himself that solitude was his destiny. Tonight, he was just passing through, heading to a ranch up north for seasonal work, his horse trailer hitched to his pickup outside. He ordered black coffee and a slice of pie, settling onto a stool at the counter. But something drew his gaze to the booth in the corner. Maybe it was the way Sarah's shoulders slumped, or how Tommy's little hand reached out to comfort his sister. Jack watched for a moment, his fork paused midair. He saw himself in those kids, the wide-eyed vulnerability he'd buried deep. And in Sarah, he saw the ghost of his Mary, fighting alone against a world that didn't care. Rita noticed him staring and leaned over the counter. "Poor things. Widow and her babies, from what I gather. Truck's on its last legs. Breaks your heart, don't it?" Jack didn't respond at first. He just set down his fork, stood up, and walked over to the booth. Sarah looked up, startled, her protective instincts flaring. "Can I help you?" she asked, her voice steady but wary. Jack tipped his hat, his voice low and gravelly, like wind over gravel. "Ma'am, I couldn't help but notice, you folks look like you've had a rough go. Mind if I sit?" Sarah hesitated, glancing at the kids. Tommy eyed the stranger curiously, while Emma hid behind her mom's arm. But there was something in Jack's eyes, not pity, but a quiet understanding, that made her nod. He slid into the seat across from them. "I'm Jack," he said simply. "Been on the road a long time myself. What's got you out here?" The words tumbled out before Sarah could stop them. The farm, the bills, the endless job rejections because who hires a single mom with no references? The kids hadn't had a proper meal in days, and tonight, this diner was their only shelter from the chill. As she spoke, tears welled up, but she wiped them away fiercely. Jack listened without interrupting, his coffee growing cold beside him. When she finished, he leaned back, thoughtful. "I lost my wife years back," he shared, his voice cracking just a bit. "Left me adrift, like a boat without an anchor. But seeing you here, reminds me life ain't meant to be faced alone." Sarah didn't know what to say. Strangers didn't open up like that. But before she could respond, Jack stood. "Wait here," he said, and headed to the counter. He paid for his meal, then whispered something to Rita. Moments later, she brought over steaming plates, burgers, fries, milkshakes for the kids. "Courtesy of the gentleman," she said with a wink. The kids' eyes lit up like Christmas morning. Tommy dove in, while Emma giggled at the whipped cream on her shake. Sarah looked at Jack, who'd returned to the booth. "Why?" she whispered. "Because sometimes, a little kindness is all that stands between fallen apart and holding on," he replied. But he wasn't done. As they ate, he asked about their plans. Nowhere specific, Sarah admitted, just away from the pain. Jack thought of his own ranch, a modest spread he'd inherited but rarely visited, sitting empty except for memories. It had room, land for kids to run, and he could use help with the chores. It wasn't charity, it was a chance. Get your things, he said suddenly, his decision made in that quiet diner light. You're comin' home with me. Sarah froze. What? We can't. I don't even know you. I ain't askin' for nothin' in return, Jack assured her. Just a place to rest, figure things out. My ranch is a few hours north. Got extra rooms, fresh food from the garden. Kids can play, you can breathe. If it don't suit, you leave anytime. It sounded too good, too risky. But looking at her children's faces, alive with hope for the first time in months, Sarah felt a spark of something she'd thought lost, trust. Maybe, just maybe, this cowboy was an answer to a prayer she hadn't voiced. They followed him in her truck, the kids dozing in the back as stars dotted the sky. Jack led the way, his mind racing. What was he doing? He'd built walls high as mountains, but seeing that family cracked them wide open. Redemption, he realized, wasn't about forgetting the past, it was about letting it guide you to help others. The ranch was simple, a weathered house with a wraparound porch, barns in the distance, and fields stretching to the horizon. As they pulled up, a dog barked a welcome, tail wagging furiously. Jack showed them inside. Clean beds, a kitchen stocked with basics. This was my Mary's home, he said softly, pointing to a faded photo on the wall. She'd want it filled with life again. That first night, Sarah tucked the kids in, their bellies full from a quick supper Jack whipped up, eggs from his chickens, bread from the pantry. She found him on the porch, staring at the stars. Thank you, she said, sitting beside him. I don't know how to repay this. Jack shook his head. Ain't about repayment. It's about connection. We all need it, even if we pretend we don't. Over the next weeks, the ranch came alive. Tommy helped Jack with the horses, learning to ride with wide-eyed wonder. Emma picked wildflowers, her laughter echoing like music. Sarah took on mending clothes and cooking, her skills turning the place into a home. Jack shared stories of the frontier days, his voice warming as he watched the kids thrive. In return, Sarah listened to his tales of loss, offering quiet comfort that eased his burdens. One evening, as the sun dipped low, painting the sky in oranges and pinks, Jack found Sarah in the garden. You've given us a miracle, she said, tears glistening. No, he replied, taking her hand gently. You've given me one. I was lost, riding alone. Now, I got family again. Months turned to seasons. The ranch flourished under their shared efforts, crops grew, livestock multiplied. Sarah found work in town, but the ranch remained their anchor. Jack, once a wanderer, discovered joy in the everyday. Tommy's first solo ride, Emma's drawings pinned to the fridge. And in quiet moments, love bloomed unexpectedly between Jack and Sarah, not rushed, but natural, like rain after drought. They married under that vast sky, the kids beaming as witnesses. Looking back, it all started in that diner, with a plate of leftovers and a cowboy's compassionate glance. Life's ripples, you see, start small, a kind word, a helping hand, but they spread, touching hearts in ways we can't imagine. In a world that can feel so harsh, remember, one act of kindness can turn strangers into family, despair into hope. And sometimes, home isn't a place, it's the people who pull you in when you need it most. So, hold on to that empathy, let it guide you. You never know whose life you might change, or who might change yours.